Welcome to the Catholic New Yorker here once again with Alex Basil, and we're here today in Park Slope, Brooklyn to take a look at this beautiful church. It's called the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary and St. Stephen Parish. Now when you hear that name, it seems like it's kind of all over the place, but it really is going to kind of really pinpoint some of the history of Catholicism here in New York City, and especially in Brooklyn. One of the things that's going to happen as the Irish influence is going to build, we're going to see at the same time the Italians are going to be coming more and more to this new world to find a better place, and they're going to settle here in Brooklyn, and it's going to be one of the largest concentrations of the Irish population in all of the United States. That's really what Park Slope is going to become. Now in our tradition of our church, we have the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Those two symbols show us the boundless mercy of God. If we think about Jesus on the cross, we hear, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." It's a very, very important moment in theology for us, because we realize that even though people are going to betray us, people disappoint us, people turn their backs on us, people do incredible things to us that maybe we find hard to forgive, Jesus gives us a pattern for doing so. And so too his mother Mary. And the Immaculate Heart of Mary shows us the love of humanity and shows us the love also of her son. Now St. Stephen is also a very, very important saint in our church. We have a very, very important devotion to the Blessed Mother, but also to these other saints that really are going to show us the evolution of the church. St. Stephen is known as the first martyr of the church. He was a deacon, and he's going to be put to death. The Irish are going to celebrate St. Stephen from the very, very beginning of Christianity in Ireland because of his role in giving his life for the faith. And especially the Irish, who suffered so much, especially at the hands of the English during their faith, they're going to really hold on to this important devotion to St. Stephen. Now the parish of St. Stephen is going to be founded in 1866 by the Irish immigrants. The cornerstone to this very church is going to be laid July 20th, 1873. Now, what will happen is that the pastor here at St. Stephen's is going to purchase the property and the old church of St. Paul's Episcopal Parish. They are growing in size, the Episcopal Church, and they're going to move to a different location. So the Irish are going to find their home in the old church of the parish of St. Paul's. As they outgrow their original small wooden church, they're going to turn to a name that we've heard before, and that name is going to be Patrick Keeley. Patrick Keeley was the Irish immigrant from Tyrone, and we saw his work in St. Francis Xavier Church on 16th Street in New York City. And Patrick Keeley is going to design this church. Now this church is going to have a lot of his trademark design. One of his trademarks, which we'll see inside the church, is we're going to see that there's not this symmetrical bottom to his stained glass windows. A lot of times when a designer would design a stained glass window, there would be a perfect symmetry to it. One of the trademarks of Keeley will be that he will put a bulb on one side of the stained glass window, and on the other side you will see this beautiful blossom. For Keeley, he wanted this constant reminder of the resurrection, and that's going to be one of his trademarks, and it will be very much alive in his current design. The Parish of Sacred Heart will be founded in 1882 by the Italian immigrants, and it will really become the first Italian mother church here in the United States. It will become, as I said before, the largest concentration of Italian immigrants in all of the United States. Sacred Heart Church will be the home of Mother Frances Cabrini. She is known for not only being the first American saint, not the first American-born saint, but she became an American citizen. She did incredible work with the immigrants here in the United States. She will found a school for the Italian immigrants in Sacred Heart Parish, which will really become the cornerstone for how do we take care of a lot of the Italians here in the United States. So her work will be very, very important, not only here in Brooklyn, but in the United States in general. Now, Sacred Heart Parish will first be on President Street, and then it will move to Hicks Street. One of the things that, as we see going on, is the real presence of Italian devotion. And one of the most important elements of that Italian devotion will be called the Addolorata, Our Lady, Queen of Sorrows. And here in beautiful Park Slope, there's this incredible annual procession of Our Lady of Sorrows. The Addolorata is going to be carried through the streets, and it will really show the importance of that devotion that becomes very important. Now, the Italians love their statues, and when we go inside the church, we will see the many statues that were originally at Sacred Heart Church, and that when the two parishes ended up combining, they will be brought here. A lot of those original statues, because of the amount and because they wanted to integrate into the current church design, are not going to be able to be on display, and they are still kept in storage today. So when these parishes were combined, as we said, they had this amazing procession from Sacred Heart Parish to this, and it was a time of sorrow because they had to give up their old parish, but a time of also joy because they were joining this beautiful church here on the other side of town. Now, in 1941, the BQE is going to be built, and the famous builder Robert Moses is going to be known for using eminent domain in order to take over certain buildings. And that's going to be one of the things in which we're going to see it's part of progress, but it's also part of kind of an infringement on things that have existed. So poor little Sacred Heart Parish is going to be knocked down. Archbishop Malloy is going to try in his own way to possibly save the parish, but he cannot do so. So unfortunately what will happen is Sacred Heart Parish is going to be torn down. So the immigrant story will be told in the decor of this church. St. Patrick, the statues and the artwork of St. Patrick are now going to be joined in a new way by the Italian devotion of St. Catherine and even St. Francis. And little by little, this church, which was at one point uniquely Irish, is going to become really now about the joining of these different ethnicities, and even today we see more ethnicity coming into the church. So it really tells the importance of the immigrant story. So there's going to be one thing that will unite this church with St. Patrick's, the new St. Patrick's, is, if you remember, while we were down in the new St. Patrick's, we saw James Renwick really concerned about money. He was building his church, so he had all of this beautiful marble, but he has to abandon that idea of using marble all the way up because he just doesn't have the money. Now, a very similar technique will be used here in this parish, that a lot of the ornate work in the parish, which seems like it could be metal work or even marble work, will actually be plaster. So that's going to cut down a lot on the cost of building the church, and it will certainly help to speed up the process of building the church. The parishes were actually combined on a fateful day in United States history. It will be on the day of the attack of Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, that these parishes were combined. One of the probably the greatest treasures of this particular church will be a gift that will be given to the church on the 25th anniversary of the church on February 12th, 1907. Pius X, who, if you remember from church history, had a wonderful devotion to the Eucharist. He is going to bestow on the parish here of St. Stephen's this very ornate chalice, which is kept really for special occasions. At the base is Moses, his brother Aaron, the first high priest, along with the old tradition of the high priest, Melchizedek. So we see this beautiful devotion to the Eucharist, but it really shows us the importance of this place, this church here in the history of the United States, where Pius X is going to recognize the importance and bestow this beautiful gift upon the parish. As we said, in an effort to kind of save some money, obviously every church desires to have beautiful stained glass windows, but the original design of this church is going to call for just geometric signs, different symbols that are going to be used, and they will be replaced as time goes on. The original pane of glass where it's Jesus with the children is really one of the most original parts. Now, unfortunately, in this church, in 1951, there will be a terrible fire, and there will be major damage, and the only thing that will survive will be the existing four walls and the steeple. The steeple was really a major concern during the fire. The fire department was trying to save the steeple because they really feared that if it fell, it would damage a lot of the buildings in the neighboring area, in the neighborhood. So they really did everything they could. So the original steeple exists, and it really is something that makes this church stand out. When they built the church, it was the only church that you could see from, or it was the most prominent church that you could see from the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was seen from miles and miles around. Now, originally in the church there were stained glass windows of the four evangelists. So you had Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. As time went on, the influence of the Italians was felt. St. Mark was replaced by a statue of St. Anthony. The incredible Italian devotion to St. Anthony does not particularly supersede the importance of St. Mark, but he was important to the people here, and they certainly related to St. Anthony in a unique and a very, very important way. In 1950, Father Francis Del Vecchio will become pastor here at the parish. Now, it will only be a year in which the Great Fire is going to take place, so it will be up to Father Del Vecchio, who will later become Monsignor Del Vecchio, who will really be in charge of reconstructing this church and keeping the faith life of the people going. Now, Father Del Vecchio was known for his incredible hospitality, and he had a great relationship with the Holy See, especially later on with Pope John Paul II. He allowed a lot of the people, or he entertained a lot of the people who were in town from the United Nations, from the Holy See, and he was known for his incredible hospitality and taking care of these people. So it really shows that, you know, the people here of this parish, even though the Mother Church of St. Peter's and the Vatican at times maybe seem so far away, there was a very, very close relationship with that. So Monsignor Del Vecchio will be in charge of putting this parish back together. Now, one of the things that he's going to do is he's going to put this incredible pipe organ in. And it was designed by the same people of the new St. Patrick's, obviously on a smaller scale because of the, you know, the size of this church. But one of the secrets of the church is that Father Del Vecchio put drapes up in the choir loft, and he hid the organist because of his great love of music and the fact that he himself was a musician, that Father Del Vecchio would often scoot up to the choir loft and become the organist when he was not celebrating Mass. So he didn't want people to see him playing the organ, but he had such a great passion of music, and I do appreciate that as a liturgical musician myself. There's something about sharing what you have with other people and sharing that joy of music. So that's one of the things that he was known for in his pastoral ministry. So the steeple here at this parish is going to be 210 feet. As we said, it was really the major thing that you could see from the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was really meant to, it was created so that people saw the faith of the Catholics. On top was placed this giant cross, and it was, even before electricity, lit by gaslight. And it was something that you could see. It illuminated the cross from miles and miles around. And it will be in 1980 that a lot of the parishioners noticed that during a storm, they saw that the cross was beginning to sway back and forth. And they informed the pastor, and there was really nothing that they could do. It was so high up, they were worried, but it actually fell backwards into the church, and it created this giant hole. But because when the church was reconstructed, they were worried about the church going on fire again, the church was actually largely constructed out of concrete. That the concrete actually held the cross from crashing in, and it probably saved the lives of a lot of people, because when it fell, there was certainly people still, I believe, here in the church. Now, obviously, this is a beautiful church to be seen 365 days during the year, but as some parishioners have reminded me as I'm out here filming, they say you must come by, especially during Christmas. There's a beautiful illumination of this parish. It is exquisitely lit with these beautiful Christmas lights, especially in that wonderful Italian tradition. If you've ever been to Italy during December and even part of January, you will see that the Italians love to light up their cities, and they will certainly light up this incredible church. During the Triduum, from Good Friday up until the Easter Vigil, there's this incredible and this large purple cloth that will cover the entire altar. As you know, in our tradition, during those days after Christ has died, there's this very somber mood. So all of this grandeur is kind of hidden just for a few days as we join in Christ, in his sorrow and in his sacrifice. What makes this parish of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary and St. Stephen so important? It shows the importance of banding together as Catholics, people together in their faith, people coming together in a universal church. The decor that we will see as we go into the church and then we walk around, we really will see the influence of what we did when we grew up, and how we had our devotion. Our Lady of Sorrows, Addolorata, was this patron saint of Molina de Bari. And when the people left their native land and they came to the United States, it was Our Lady of Sorrows that got them through their difficult times. Obviously, the church was an important part of their joys, but they came together, and why they banded together, I mean, as we said, especially in this neighborhood, we saw people of Italian origin come together, and they banded together for the largest concentration of Italians in the country. They wanted stories of home. They wanted stories of faith. They banded together. They had a common language. And obviously there was some persecution on behalf of, we talked about the nativists. There was certainly prejudice. And it's been part of our world. And I think especially in these days in which we're contemplating how do we treat people here in the United States? How do we treat people as we go through our day? We need to think about our own history and how do we take care of those people around us. Our greatest commandment is our commandment to love, and that's the one that Christ gives us. So we're going to take this tour of the church, and we hope that you really, really enjoy this celebration of faith, and just thinking about, no matter where you came from, whether it's the Caribbean, whether you came from different parts of Europe, different parts of the United States, to come here to New York just to celebrate your faith and to celebrate the reason for our faith, which is love. Really through the entire United States.